My name is Ajay Skaria. I teach at the University of Minnesota. I've been here now for 25 years, 26 years. And I'm technically a historian by training. My work is on nonviolence, on somewhere between on the cusp of history and philosophy. And what I want to do today in the few minutes that I have is to emphasize 3 points about all. Right? Basically, all 3 of them are to do with the nature of the community that's involved. Right? And one thing I want to stress, first of all, one thing that I want to stress, first of all, is that this historically is a very distinctive time. For the first time over the last 20, 30 years, we have a phenomenon where the state cannot be trusted anymore in the way that it could be earlier. This is a time, this is why community has become more important than it was before. I'm not saying that the state was not involved in violence earlier, but very often, even when the state was passively involved in violence, when the state was, turning the other eye, and of course, there are exceptions when you think of Kashmir, when you think of Israel, when you think of Mizoram, the Northeast. Even then, very often you could trust the state to be there when push came to shove. You saw that changing at a national level with the Gujarat genocide, right? And what has followed since then. So that's one thing I want to stress. The other thing I really want to stress, which I think is very, very important, given what we're talking about the nature of community responses, is that the form of violence itself has changed in profound ways. Again, this is not a completely new change. It's been happening at least since the 1940s. Right? There's a wonderful philosopher called Hannah Arendt who uses the phrase, the banality of evil. Right? And what she means by this is something like this, that look, the Holocaust did not happen because ordinary people went out and killed Jews. Right? It happened because ordinary people did not care. They looked the other way. Right? And that's what she means by the banality. That evil happens not just because of those who actually commit the killing, but those who look the other way. Yeah? And that's where community response is so important. That's also why it's very important that the community response happens not only to these large gatherings where we show solidarity, but in the individual interactions that we have with those people who may actually, in some way or the other, be turning the other eye. Be turning the blind eye. Right? The third point I want to make, again very, very quickly, is about this question of what community. And here I want to return to a word that is very prominent in Minnesota, which is neighbor. Right? And the reason I stress this word neighbor, I can bring that out by putting it in contrast to 2 other kinds of community. One, the community of citizens, and 2, the community of ethnos or family or whatever. And in a sense, what I'm going to say now is very much in keeping with this verse that was discussed right in the beginning from the Quran. Right? Think of the community of citizens. If you and I are citizens, it's because we both belong to the same state. So it's through the state that we share a citizenship. And if one was to fight for immigrant rights, one cannot fight for immigrant rights by saying they're citizens, because they're not citizens. One is fighting in the name of a community. And this is a community of non-citizens, or where citizenship, at least even if they're citizens, citizenship is not the most important item. The other thing I want to stress relatedly is that this is not the community, say, of the ethnicity, of a shared religion, etc. Where you are part of a family, of a community of shared religion, of an ethnicity, there is something substantive that you have in common. Right? And that's what holds us together. When I say that here is my neighbor, I'm not saying I share something substantive with them. I'm saying that I don't know what this neighbor is. But there is something about this call that I feel. Right? which does not necessarily come from the neighbor itself, but maybe some higher powers, some higher commitment that I feel, which is part of what we're invoking when we invoke the prayer. So in a sense, even if the Quran is a community of faith, it is also a community of faith that opens to what is outside the faith. Right? And that's very, very important. And that is what is involved in this figure of the Hindu. Yeah? So I want to stress this most of all, that perhaps what we should stress is that it's the community of believers. And I think I'm stopping at just the right time. So thank you very much.